believe that it's the end of the year. Agenda meeting for the City of Lake Worth Beach Commission. Can you call the roll, just so we have a, I guess we should call the roll.
Mayor Betty Resch.
Here.
Vice Mayor Herman Robinson.
Ooh.
You froze again.
Did.
Vice Mayor Herman Robinson.
I think he left us.
He's there. He's just muted, Shayla.
Commissioner Sarah Maliga is absent. Commissioner Christopher McVoy. Commissioner Kimberly Stokes.
Here.
Oh, there she is.
Yes.
Hello.
I was just waiting to get promoted as panelist, but so I'm good.
You're in now, baby.
Yep.
In for the whole thing. So how are we all doing this morning? And a happy and a Merry Christmas to all.
Good. Yeah.
Good. It's our agenda meeting. You know, we kind of keep it to an hour. We don't have Sarah. We don't have Chris. That's interesting. I thought Sarah was going to join us from the slopes of some exotic place. So let's keep it as, you know, brief and concise as we can. Herman, since you're here, why don't we start with you? Any ideas you have or thoughts you have?
Well, nothing hopefully controversial. I had requested 2 items, but is it my understanding now that anything on the agenda is going to go through our review from commissioners?
I don't think so. You mean anything ahead of time? Like
well,
contracts?
Under the cutoff, no. I have 4 things that I was going to request.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, go ahead.
I wanted to just accept referring to our future project on the oceanfront as our oceanfront park. I wanted to require developers with 4 units or more or a substantial commercial development to have a public meeting with the stakeholders. That being, you know, neighbors, neighborhood associations.
How do you propose that be accomplished? I mean, I know it's being done and I completely encourage it. Hi, Chris. I know it's being done.
Well, it would have to be recorded, you know, somehow. And I just wanted to establish a date for the process of board appointments. And I wanted to understand the agenda review process. In the past, we were able to put things on the agenda at a request, but is that not going to be the case now in the future? Or
We haven't really talked about that specifically. I think with the agenda, we do have twice a monthly agenda meeting this, you know, now, which I think that was part of the reason we were doing this. Just so there's, you know, things don't pop up without us knowing about it or whatever. We can discuss it, you know, have people think about that.
Ella,
Yep. Okay, so those are your
the
4
guys
things.
are in the back.
I'm sorry? I don't, oh, Herman froze again. Hi, Ed. All right, Herman froze. So,
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. So until Herman gets back, so we've got 4 things from Herman that he wants to talk about. I mean, yeah. Kim, are you with us? Or is everybody frozen? What's going on?
I think I'm with you. Oh,
There you are. I see you.
and Herman might be back. I don't know. I counted 3 things for Herman. I don't know if he still had a 4th.
Just
He said 4, but yeah, the agenda review process. The date for the board appointment, developers talking to stakeholders, good idea, oceanfront park. Okay, date. Excuse me, I'm being protective. Susie, seriously, they just walked past. So those are 4 things. And I guess Herman's question is, you know, how are we?
So I'm
on the agenda?
frozen again.
Excuse me, let me silence myself for a second.
Is there any way to put it on closed caption?
Looks like we lost Commissioner Robinson.
Okay. I apologize. I hope nobody walks past my house again. Okay, so Herman had 4 things. We can certainly talk about. Kim, what's
Right.
on your part?
I had 5 things, but one of them, and I've been talking to our city manager about it, so this won't be a surprise to her, but I just wanted to let everybody know too, what I think is like the priorities or time sensitive things for January.
Yeah.
So one of them was also with Herman's, one of his items, we did talk about reviving our old ordinance for board selection. So I'd love to see that on, it's not going to make this January's meeting, but our 3rd Tuesday in January, I'd love for us to be able to vote on that, the new process for how we're going to be selecting and filling our vacancies and picking a date and starting to get those filled. So that's something I think we should aim for that 3rd Tuesday is getting that old ordinance back on the books. We had talked about somebody from staff pulling together a brief description of the ballot items. So when we approved those 4 charter amendments to go on, we knew that we were kind of confined by the number of words that we could use in this type of legal language we had to use. But we said, we wanted to have a very neutral, purely informational description of each of those and what they mean that we could send out in one of our utility letters. So like, we need to get that done.
And that, by the way, that's all we're allowed to do. We can't promote or, we just have to, it's strictly information. Christy knows that, of course.
Right. So that was something that's just kind of, as we enter January, things that, are a little time sensitive. Sarah's not here, but I know we had all agreed to wanting to have a resolution opposing that House bill coming out of Florida. And
I'm going to bring that up in my little,
okay.
in my stuff. Yeah, I've been.
So that's all the direction I could give our city manager was we all said we wanted a resolution opposing this, but I couldn't give more guidance on how to pull that together in a timely fashion. So, so the ballot items, the vacancies, that House bill are all things that seem time sensitive. I'm imagining that you might bring up the city and CRA owned properties in our downtown L&M area, Mayor.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so that was something I just wanted to throw out that I'm interested in talking about. And the final thing too was, as we're preparing for the workshop on the pool, I do want to make sure, like someone from our, that we're also bringing in finance into our discussions and Bruce. And I'm sure that our city manager is going to structure a great, very productive workshop for us. But I think having a financial perspective there, having an engineering perspective there, and having somebody maybe with successful experience in managing a pool operation would be helpful. That
Herman, mute yourself, okay, as you work on it. Okay, thank you. So the last, you see the L&M, and what was this? I'm sorry, I got distracted.
Oh, just making sure at our workshop for the pool that we have people there that have experience in like the fields that will help answer questions for us as they come up. So finance, engineering, and maybe somebody who's had successful experience in managing a pool in the past would be helpful. So those are the things that are all happening in January, hopefully.
All right, very good. Chris. Did we lose our men this morning? Are they all just like only girls can be on, only women?
Oh, wait, no, I didn't unmute myself. Sorry. Yeah, it was a girls only call.
Well, much more will probably get done, but that's okay.
Well, I agree. No, I tend to agree. COVID, Oceanfront Park, climate change, quality of life, and business encouragement west of Dixie. Those are my 5.
Okay. Wait, so say that again.
I went fast.
You
COVID.
did, and I'm not asking you to elaborate, I'm just asking you to repeat.
Yeah, COVID, oceanfront park, climate change, quality of life, and businesses west of Dixie.
Okay. Climate change, or let's just fix that real quick, we can just get that one done. Effects of climate, we'll just fix that. Why didn't you put world peace on that list?
I have 6
What about world
items.
peace?
you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, great. We're getting some really, I always sometimes wish we did this once a week so we could have more talking. My kind of things or the bills that are coming up, very harmful to the cities. I'm going to be talking to our Richard Pinsky, our lobbyist. Carmen, Sarah, and I are going up to the legislative days in February, and this is obviously going to be a hot topic. I sat in on a legislative webinar last week, and this is, one of the pieces of legislation is to make us, before we pass the legislation, figure out how it's going to affect our businesses. That's one. And the other one is a business, if it moves into town, if they've been in business for 3 years, it doesn't even have to be in our town. If they have a business for 2.5 years, they move to Lake Worth, 6 months later, they fail, they can sue us for how our ordinances have affected their business negatively. It's nuts. Okay. So
Yeah.
we're fighting very hard against that. When you say climate change, I assume, Chris, for a second that you're talking about the fact that we've been completely flooded out for the past, the flooding on this. I'm sure we've all been inundated with the emails and the texts and the photographs of South 18th Avenue South, the foot of the bridge, Northeast Street. I mean, what I'm asking staff to do, because I'm sure we're all getting, contacted by our citizens about that. And so what I'm asking the staff to do, I think I asked in an email, is give us a little concise statement that we can respond to our citizens when they say, what is the city doing? We can say, well, there's a project on 17th Street, there's this, that kind of stuff. So we can be a little more concrete than, well, we're working on it, which is not as acceptable to some of our citizens as we would prefer. So if we could get that, that would be helpful, because we really do need, it's a problem. And I think our the kinds of things that we're going to do with ARPA, which is very much about water, is going to be helpful. But if we could find out, Carmen, if that's something you could talk to the staff about, just get us a quick response. There's also a flooding issue that we are not, I will respond at some point after I hear more from staff about that building on Lucerne, which flooded, and they're trying to get a comment from me, and I'm working with staff before I come out and say anything silly. Some good news, art auction, a beautiful new art auction is taking I went to the CRA, from the CRA, an art auction, high end, small, but they compete with Sotheby's and the other ones, is transforming a building on 12th Avenue between 11th and 12th on the west side of Dixie, a brown building that's been a dead zone for years. It used to be a carpet place, I think, and it's going to be amazing. It's going to bring good things to the city. The pool.
Is that 12th Avenue North or South?
North, I'm sorry.
Oh, by
North.
me. Okay.
Yeah, it is by you, and it's very exciting. The young guys are really excited about the city, and are going to make a beautiful job and bring rich people to the city. The old Island Water Sports building has been purchased, along with the building that the restaurant is in across the street, whatever it is, I forget. Panchavia's restaurant across the street, and the developers are interested. I walked through it with them the other day. It was funny to be in it's a giant space, and they are sort of thinking, what are we going to do with this? So if any, think about it. It might be a restaurant. There's a couple celebrity chefs looking at the city that may want to open a restaurant in the city. So that's just something, good news. Juan sent out Juan sent out an email the other day with a pool with a lot of attachments, and it was really, really helpful, because one of the things he sent, this is one of my other dogs. Let me just pick her up so she'll stop. Okay. Roxy's gonna help me now.
Okay.
She's like 100 years old. What was I just saying? Oh, the pool. The stuff was really helpful. One of the things that is included in that is just a list of, there was a survey taken. And if you, it's like many, many, many entries. And most of it, I mean, it kind of lines up with what our proposals were when we did our priorities. So in terms of the workshop that we're going to have, and I'm really glad we're going to have it because it will just give us a chance to talk about it. Whether we come up with an ITN or an RFP will be a decision to be made. But I think and some people are criticizing it. Well, I want this kind of plan or that. And we're not going to get to like this kind of plan. I think we're going to be more general about what we're looking for. And the financials. So we have, like I said at the meeting, there's no bad answer to this, but I think we just have to figure out what the best thing is for the city, if we do an ITN, my understanding is we can just say at the end of it, these are all interesting, but we're not interested in any of them. And there's also a possibility that we won't get any responses and we'll be back, to the other direction anyway. So I've got the book, not the big book. I've got the book with the pool. I'm sure we all have them. If we could come to that prepared with, fairly specific, like my thing is the splash pad should be outside the pool so kids don't have to pay to get into the splash pad, that sort of thing. That would be helpful if we could be pretty specific because it's going to be it's been a hot potato for a long time and there's a good reason for it. So let's cool off that potato and get it done. So Herman, is Herman back? Do we have anything from staff that we should be knowing about? Perhaps we have some important people here.
Yeah,
Anybody?
I raised my hand, Madam Mayor, when you get
I'm
done.
sorry.
I wanted you to finish your thought,
Yeah.
finish your, what you were saying.
Go ahead.
All right, so let me try to recap really quick and just a reminder to the group, going back to why and the purpose for why we created these pre-agenda meetings were from a policy standpoint to assist the organization in identifying conversations, discussions, policy conversations that you guys wanted to have brought forward to a regular commission meeting so they could be discussed there. So as an example, today I got 2 sheets worth of ideas, and from these ideas, I can think of maybe 8 possible agenda items. Because remember, what we did not want to continue to happen was each of you individually on your own time go down to the clerk's office and say, hey, I want to talk about this, put this on the agenda. And the idea was for this group to bring forward agenda ideas, get consensus from the group to discuss them further, and then help us understand when, more importantly, you wanted those to land. So here's an example. January, the month of January is essentially already booked. We have a commission meeting January 4th, which is the agenda went out. We have a regular commission meeting January 18th, and we have the beach workshop, which has been mentioned tonight, or Oceanfront Park workshop tonight. That's the whole month of January, because what we're finding is we're having a very, very difficult time to find dates where all of you or a quorum is available for workshops, much less, adding items to a commission meeting. Because if we keep adding items to regular commission meetings, those meetings are going to continue to go to 11 o'clock at night. All right. And some conversations are worthy of, if they go past 30 minutes, reading the rules of the business rules, they should be workshopped items. So again, we just got to get a little bit clearer direction on some more specificity on what it is you want to talk about, and then, when. So, like, for example, maybe, there were some mentionings about the recent floodings that have been going on in town. I could see where we could coordinate Mr. Shields doing a quick update to the commission at the 18th meeting, kind of explaining just, stormwater, some of the projects we have in the works, some of the appropriations that we have in the state that are related to some of these solutions that we're trying to, combat the flooding issues that we have. So that's pretty specific. We can, Carmen and I can coordinate that effort, but, and I don't want to pick on, Commissioner McVoy, but, climate change, that's a big heading. L&M, that's a big topic. The House bills, obviously, once we get a draft, those things will land on a commission meeting. Sounds like we're shooting for the January 18th placement. So that really makes, that exchange of information very efficient for us to pick up, package, and create those agendas. So I kind of just, and I've mentioned this before in other pre-agenda meetings. I just try to get you guys to hone in a little bit more for us so we can put these together. So,
Okay. Well,
that makes sense.
Yeah, and I don't disagree with you. And I think that from the list, as I was taking notes, we have some fairly specific agenda items that we could handle. I also think, one of the frustrations that we have is we don't get enough time to talk. And this is, so yes, this is the purpose that we started this out, but we also do want to be able to talk about other things. So like, for example, I apologize for the barking. The talking to stakeholders, I think that's a great idea. Do we have consensus maybe to come up with a requirement or ask for, either we come up with some sort of requirement or the building department does, to put that into action? I mean, to me, that could be an action. Carmen, I see your hand up.
Yes, and thank you, Madam Mayor. I was going to speak on that point as an example. If we get clarity from from you and the commissioners concerning being prepared for pre-agenda items during your discussions, that subject matter is an example. If there's a need for us to put together some type of policy concerning developers meeting with stakeholders, we as a staff can prepare a recommended policy or direction on that for you all to look at, review, and tweak and discuss, and use that as a starting point of your discussion. And so knowing that information ahead of time that discussion is coming about, we can prepare something to start that discussion. So that's a good example of an issue.
That's helpful. That's helpful. We also, Carmen, just so that you know, a few years ago, there was a change in policy about how appointments were made to different voluntary boards. It
Right.
became a purely political appointment. Before that, we, a few times a year or when an opening would come up, we would have people apply and they would be interviewed in public, and then they would as a board determine who was going to get on the board. We want to go back to that to make it less of a, you helped me, whatever. We want to make it less of a strictly political thing and more of a group. And there are openings available to do that. So I agree with Kim that we should probably, and Herman, that we should probably get a date, or maybe the next, the same kind of thing. What kind of language do we want for that ordinance to change? I don't think it's not really hard because we know what it used to be. So that would be something, if we could possibly come up with it, because we do have openings that we need to fill. So if there's any way to come up with it for the January 18th, that would be, because that would not be, we've discussed it a lot. We've agreed that what's what we want to do. So if we just have a decent, a document put in front of us, I think that would not be a big agenda item to talk about because we've talked about it already. So that's another one.
In regard to that one, Madam Mayor, could we perhaps ask staff to send us all by email the old ordinance? Christy can probably find it. I'm hoping that it describes in some detail the thing, and we look at it and say, yeah, that all looks good, or here's a minor tweak. I think we talked about the old one only met once a year, and that was the
Right.
concern that people,
Right.
we need a modification so we can deal
When
with
there's an
vacancies.
opening. I would say
Yeah.
when there's an opening, whenever.
Yeah. Exactly. So there might be a few little tweaks to it,
Yeah.
but if we send it out, and then I agree with, let's get it on the agenda as soon as possible so that we can get that, shift over to that. We do have openings that are in the wings.
Right, I'm gonna mute myself. Two people.
So if I may jump in there, Madam Mayor, I just want to piggyback off what Carmen was saying. So I'm just trying to formulate something in my head here on paper. So for the 18th, sounds like we could work on proposing, bring forward language regarding the board appointees.
Right,
We can have that put on new business as an example.
right.
And then we have a pre-agenda meeting January 12th. And so one of the ideas Carmen mentioned about you guys giving us a heads up so that you could use this platform to discuss items. A good example would be to have William Waters and Aaron join us to talk about how to create, I don't know, maybe it's an ordinance, a change of the LDRs, where there's a requirement for developers of 4 units or more to have a public meeting. And then that idea, that concept can get fleshed out to the point where it becomes a regulatory something that now lands on your regular business, your regular commission meetings for a vote.
Yeah.
Does that sound ideal?
Sounds good to me.
Is that kind of what the group's thinking? Because remember, you guys have committed to limiting these meetings to an hour. So, kind of prioritizing thing is creating items for agenda building, and then maybe some allotted time to allow you guys to discuss something that will end up on an agenda, but maybe it's not that very next agenda,
Right, right.
That makes sense. So maybe, it's something that we land in February, March. And at the same time, we're creating and identifying policy items for the 18th meeting.
So bring it to, am I, just so I understand, are you saying like we should come to Carmen and say I'm thinking about this thing, could we look at it and bring it up at the next agenda meeting? A heads up before the agenda meeting? A pre-agenda meeting?
Yeah, because in your one-on-ones, you guys can give Carmen
Yeah,
an
no,
idea.
that's a good idea. Uh-huh.
Yeah, because, and again, like if we think of this as an hour block, and let's say there's 30 minutes dedicated to actual items that are going to land on a subsequent agenda, right? A commission meeting. And then there's a little bit of time to actually discuss items that just need to be fleshed out. Maybe they take more than one meeting to really flesh out before they land at a regular commission meeting for business.
Right. Yeah, like I keep saying, I know that it's a burden on time for all of us, and I know that we get highly criticized for being, talking too much and taking too long, but this is important stuff. And if, I think the more we talk about stuff and the more meetings like this we have, the better. Because number one, people can hear what we're talking about before it gets to an agenda, and we can get emails about what we're thinking about, opinions. So, yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Madam Mayor?
Sure.
And if I can add, I'm not sure how the full structure of these meetings are. As I get more familiar, certainly I can join into it. But one of the ideas I was thinking about is to piggyback off of what Juan just said, was if we know ahead of time about items that you want us to explore and bring ideas or drafted information for your further consideration and discussion, we can set aside 15 minutes to receive your comments from these meetings so that before it goes into a regular meeting, it at least give us an idea of some of the tweaks we may need to make it final for your consideration at a regular meeting.
Yeah.
So that'll be helpful.
Works. Yeah, however that works. And, we're all, you're new, we're all Juan's old. Some of us are semi-new. We're not the newest kids on the block anymore. So yeah, I just think these meetings are helpful, and the more back and forth we can get between each other. I would caution you that is not it is not an invitation for us to go running to you with everything we think of and overburden our staff with having to do a lot of stuff before it gets to the agenda meeting. Because if it doesn't fly, then it's time. We have to be mindful of your staff time as well, I think is all I'm saying, because I know you all are quite busy.
Madam Mayor, if I can, I have my hand up, but.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't
Okay.
know how to take them down. I don't know. Is Keith doing that?
I agree. I think especially like considering how efficient we all were today. We all came with our list of items, it didn't take us each our 12 minutes to like
Right.
talk about those. And then time at the end to talk about what we've all heard and what we do want to move forward with and things like that is good as well. I'm hoping that maybe we could have like 10 or 15 minutes at the end of the meeting to talk about any current issues that are happening in the city that might not be
Absolutely.
specifically going to land on an agenda anytime soon, but we're worried about sunshine law and we just need an opportunity to like all get on the same page and figure, like maybe just pick one really like current event that seems like it could use a group discussion around, not necessarily focused. So I think, 45 minutes, very focused on agendas and clear, and everything else, and maybe save a little bit of time for us to have that opportunity we never get to have.
No, I agree. And I mean, listen, we set this as an hour just because, we wanted to have some sort of limit. I have, Wednesdays are sort of my city days. So I personally would have no objection if we wanted to do it a little bit longer, because this, I mean, it is an opportunity for us to, hey, listen, I heard about this down the street the other day. What about the storm sewers? Are we going to ask people, are we going to put a thing out, please clean your storm sewers? Because the last couple of days were a mess. That kind of stuff. So I agree with that. So if anybody ever brings up that we want to go a little bit longer, you will not get an objection from me unless we go really, really crazy long. So I think, we have some big things to talk about. The L&M project. I think those interviews are starting. I've not had any opportunity to have input into who they're going to be talking about, and I've emailed Joan about that. So I'm going to try to find out, and I'll share with everybody once I find out. I'll share with Carmen, and she can carry it out. Anything else anybody wants to talk about?
Well, I just had a question about,
Now
this
we have time.
process. Oh, yeah.
We actually have time.
Yeah, I was with the, because I know we've gotten complaints about the structure, the houses that are there now that are boarded up and vacant, that are in that area. And I know everybody's been very careful not to let each other know how we're responding to those queries. But I kind of want to know, because I think you mentioned a while ago that you had been talking to Joan about some possibilities, like, can we get somebody in there? This new process is slated to take a year. Is there a way to get some artist in there for really cheap, or somebody just pay to fix this up and you can have it for a year, but you're only getting it for a year?
Good question. Joan and I toured the buildings a few months ago, before I got sick, and she was like, "Oh, she had not gone through them all," and she was like, "Oh, these they're not shacks. They're people were living in them. This is one of the reasons I ran for mayor. Is this whole thing." So I asked, and I know that the William, because they're paying, I requested that we get a study to find out what it would take to get them occupied again. What would it take to get us, get people back in there and rent them, just rent them. I mean, that's an income that we could have. What we got back was not what we were looking for. What we got back was kind of a vague structural, this one could be fixed up. It was not what we were looking for. And I'm a little frustrated that I've not heard back from anybody about the progress of that, because I said very clearly, what's it going to take to move people in? Do they have to be termite? I mean, they were letting those buildings rot is making me crazy. So I would, I've expressed this to Joan, and I'm expressing it now. I think I copied William on that. What the heck's going on? I want to get people in there. I'm sick of now they're being broken into. The Church by the Glades is a great thing. They have showers come in, but I know that my neighbors have all come to me and said, "Betty, we're having a little more car break-ins and stuff since those showers started." I'm like, "Oh no." And now all of a sudden, because we didn't have people breaking in for a long time, and now all of a sudden we're having people break into those buildings. So I am extremely frustrated about the lack of progress. And I would ask that, can our building inspector go out, just say, this one needs that one? I mean, they don't have to be perfect. They have to be habitable. And they were habitable until we threw people out. And, they've admitted that was a mistake, but Carmen, if that's something, and we'll talk more about that. That is a hot potato in this town, and we got to get people in there.
I think we're all in agreement. Like the takeaway for Carmen is to know for this meeting, for all of us at one
Right.
time to say, we don't want those things sitting unoccupied for a year, rotting and having, be an open invitation for people to break in and do things that are not desirable in our.
They've been empty for like 2 years now. It's ridiculous.
Madam Mayor, if I may, we have a meeting later with Joan at 10:30 and on another item. And Carmen and I will follow up with her, and we'll get Carmen up to speed as well. We were letting her get both of her feet grounded here before we threw everything at her.
No, absolutely. But these are things, and I don't expect a salient response from Carmen. It's just giving her a chance to know what the heck we're talking about here.
Yeah.
No, I don't know what your meeting is with Carmen, with Joan, but it's making me crazy, and it's making a lot of people that are going to make a lot of noise crazy if we don't do something about it. And
Yeah, and
I'm fending them off right now. I know, Chris, you probably are as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what's said. So there's an urgency to it. Buildings always do better when they're occupied than they do empty, and we're seeing
That's why
already.
Right.
So let's, it was a mistake to set them empty. Let's undo that as quickly as possible. Whatever the obstacles are, let's get them fixed.
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Anything else?
Madam Mayor, can we discuss, if you don't mind,
Sure.
and Commissioner Robinson brought it up earlier, and it relates to updating the reso that governs your business meetings, and it's how items by elected officials are added to the agenda.
Mhm.
Now, currently, as it reads, within the 11-day window, there's 11-day cutoff, which is, I think that's the old one that reflects our old agenda schedule, where you could add an item to a commission meeting. Once that 11-day window passes, technically, an item is not supposed to be added to agenda unless it's deemed an emergency. Right. So obviously, we can all admit we've kind of bounced in and out of that. And then we created a longer agenda process to allow more time once the agendas were created. And now we have twice a month pre-agenda meetings, right? Which we've already talked about. So we as a group, as an organization, need to get on a same page and agree to what is going to be the process on how you guys want to move forward with adding agenda items to regular commission meetings.
I'd like to speak to that if I could. It's been on my list here.
And really quick, Chris, Commissioner, before you start, remember, it's not just our 2 monthly regular commission meetings, but it also impacts our electric utility, soon to be utility board meetings as well. So in a month's time, we got to keep all that in perspective when we talk about this.
And I made a note earlier as we were talking about some of this that I think we all like the pre-agenda meetings. Some of it is focused on, hey, can we talk about things that we might like to see on upcoming meetings? Some of it is more long range, more general. Some of it is, as we've talked about, maybe toward the end of the meeting, reserve some time just for things that are coming up in the city that aren't necessarily agenda items. All of that is good. I would strongly advocate that as long as if it's not an emergency item, as long as we stick to the deadline of not closer than whatever it is, 2 weeks, that we keep ourselves open to multiple ways to add things to the agenda, that different folks may have different things. Sarah is not here. She may have a different approach than some other people. Herman may have a different approach. I think in terms of good governance and representing the residents and speaking for them, there's no particular huge importance to it has to be a certain way. If things come up, that's great. And I would be myself very uncomfortable with a situation where, let's say Commissioner X wants to add some to the agenda. And I say, no, I don't want that added to agenda. I think Commissioner X rules on that one, that if a commissioner feels something's important, it should at least have a hearing at an agenda, at a commission meeting. I don't have to agree, I don't have to support it, but I would be very uncomfortable ixnaying somebody else's ideas for what's important to have on an agenda. That's my 2 cents.
Perhaps a way to deal with that would be under commissioner comments, because I mean, we're pretty good group, but if random things come, it's not efficient for random things to come in that on an agenda. Now there's this thing that we have never thought about that's there. What about, I like the idea of bringing it up in a pre-agenda meeting. What about bringing it up into commissioner, like under commissioner comments? Hey, I've got this idea for, that I want to bring forward. It would add a little more time to the agenda comments, but you get an idea of the reception that the concept is going to get. I think some sort of control, some sort of procedure, although it's cumbersome, I don't think is a bad idea.
And
Madam
I
Mayor?
have, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Stokes. Would you like to
Kim?
go?
I, of course, like everything, there's no simple answer. There's like
Right.
consequences to both. And so I can see it when we don't want to have these 11 o'clock meetings on a regular basis, and we don't want to have 5 separate commissioners all add 30-minute items to an agenda
Right.
that's already mostly full. And I get wanting to mitigate that, but we've seen in the past sometimes like a 3-2 majority shakeout. And I would be very worried that if we don't have that situation right now. I think we work pretty well together. But there's not to say that's not going to happen. I don't want to set some precedent in the future. If there is some sort of 3-2 majority, that those 2 commissioners who are elected by the people of the city don't get to bring up their items in the public to be discussed or talked about, because it never makes its way onto agenda because they're sitting in a minority. I don't know that we're going to solve it right now today. I think we should continue to think about this and try to come up with a way to understand what the concerns are with each approach. And is there like some sort of middle
There has to
solution
be-
that can?
Yeah, I think a middle solution, a balance is what we've got to find.
Yeah.
Madam
Because
Mayor,
it-
if I can jump in real quick, let me
Sure.
just play a little bit devil's advocate. You guys know I do this with you in the past.
Yes, you do.
There is no other organization that we're aware of in the county that has 4 public meetings every month going on. With the addition of 2 pre-agenda meetings every month, you now have 4 public opportunities to discuss whatever it is you want to discuss. 5, including electric utility. That's unheard of, which is good. We want to talk, we want to get things off your chest, talk as a group. But also remember that the annual strategic plan, the 5-year strategic plan that we've only had 1 visioning meeting on, that is the driving document that helps mold what we work on and what we the goals that we want to accomplish throughout a year's work plan. So, you have all these moving pieces. So we got to complete that. And once we get that completed, the organization now kind of has its marching orders to go out and accomplish it. And then we use meetings to refine. Commission meetings are done are to conduct the business, to vote things up and down. You have the budget process. So I hear what you guys are saying. But if you think back in time, the organization was starving for more opportunities. We created them to talk about that. And then the purpose for these meetings and these pre-agending is to get consensus, to lay out what it is your concern is. And if you get consensus, which is a majority, it lands on a commission meeting for some sort of a vote or action. So we're kind of bob and weaving in and out. And it's going to cause confusion down the stream. It's at your pleasure. You guys tell Carmen how you want to do it. But again, it is unheard of for an organization of any size to have this many public opportunities. And this is just like a commission meeting. It's just a different format, but it's a public and everyone's invited. And with Zoom, it's almost no reason not to attend if you're interested, and they're recorded. You can go back and watch these meetings.
And it
And
is
so the
very
level of
limited though,
engagement that
Juan.
we're creating is far ahead of where we've ever been.
I would say, and I appreciate all that, but this is very limited. So if like Commissioner X has something that they feel is very passionate and is worthy of a discussion item, they're not going to be able to do that here at this meeting. They have 2 seconds to sell it. And if they cannot reach a consensus, I don't know, let's say 3 agenda meetings in a row. Oh, it's just not important enough. It's just not important enough. At what point do we say, you know, they get to have their time to talk about this item? I don't know that without a real example, it's hard to see. So I'm willing to, like, let's try something, get everybody on the same page of what the expectations are, try it, and then adjust if we find that something's not working like we expected it to.
And what do you suggest that be?
I think because we have these meetings, I think it would be good for us to, I would like to avoid having things added to our agendas, but I don't know, are they discussion items? Because sometimes the commissioners just add a discussion item.
Be honest, Commissioner Stokes, if we think about looking backwards in time,
Right.
all discussion items, they all start a discussion, but there's typically a vote that's wanted or some sort of action. There's an action that's deemed, that's desired.
Well, right, like you get, if somebody brings something, I don't mean to interrupt, but somebody brings Commissioner X brings something up at a meeting. It's a discussion item. It gets, a neutral, okay, go ahead and try, see what happens. It's only if it's like a no that it would be a problem. I don't know. Because
It does
eventually,
take
if
that
it is a
time.
3-2, but if it's gonna, I mean, if I don't know, it's you're right, Kim, there's no black and white answer to this. Because if somebody brings a commission item up to me, like an item that I just think is like ridiculous, I can't imagine what that would be. But and I know that I will never vote for it, then that kind of gives me an opportunity to not go through, for that person to know that there's not support for that and not take more time working on it. I don't know. And I don't mean me, I mean the group. Christy?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. The one thing I just wanted to mention is we do have your rules of procedure that will be coming forward. One of the changes that we have to make is to clarify that the electric utility meeting is now the utility meeting. So that may also be an opportunity to look at those rules of procedure regarding when commissioners can add things to an official agenda to perhaps discuss if you want to make changes.
When would that be then? I'm
We're
sorry.
going to bring that forth on the second meeting in January to change the title of, because currently in your rules of procedure, it's called the electric utility meeting. That's in your rules of procedure that really sets out how you're supposed to be adding things to the agenda nowadays.
Maybe that could be emailed to all of us so that we know the starting point.
Absolutely.
Okay, that would be helpful because then we know where we start.
You got it.
Thank you. Go ahead.
If I might jump in briefly, I just sort of a broader perspective thing. And I don't know quite, it's not totally clear in my head altogether, but I believe that we should remember that we were elected because there was a request in the community, a feeling in the community that things needed to operate differently. And we needed to lead, provide stronger direction. And I don't think we should bog down too much into the procedural at the expense of not leading the city forward in directions, obviously leading the city in some weird direction that nobody supports and whatnot. That'll filter itself out. Nobody's going to vote for my weirdest ideas. And that's fine. That's why we have 5 of us to keep some bounds on things. But I also don't think we should be too worried about procedures if it's at the expense of perhaps the more, hey, what do you think about this idea? If we had done strong visioning sessions, like what we've talked about a number of times. And I think we ought to, now that we have a new city manager, we ought to think about doing a weekend retreat or something or other, however people do visioning sessions with the Sunshine Law, where we really say, all right, what is our leadership vision for the city, and try to get some consensus on it, at least loosely, and then translate that into eventual agenda items. But I also think we need to keep some flexibility and nimbleness as things happen at the national level, things happen internationally. Sometimes some of that influences, and we say, hey, you know, we maybe need to change course here a little bit. So
I don't think anyone's saying we wouldn't do that. I
well,
don't think we're saying- But I think some,
just let's not get too bogged down on procedure.
I don't think that's been a problem. But I mean, I understand what you're saying. It's a balance, like everything else, you know, how much, you know, but you have to be, you know, cognizant of staff time and cognizant of the public time. And, you know, I think as we're coming to these meetings with this like we're having a conversation now, is, you know, hey, you know, I hear this in, like Kim said, in town, and this is what people are talking about, and maybe coming up with ideas from that feedback from the citizens as well.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we are all adults and professionals here. So I think my goal is to never have to add something directly through the clerk onto the agenda. I'm going to do my best to come to these meetings, to bring up the things that I think are relevant in the near term. And, you know, if I would be curious to find out what circumstance lead certain commissioners to feel like they need to go directly to the clerk and not bring it up in a meeting like this. So I wouldn't want to completely take it off the table. And I think now that we have these meetings, so we saw a big flux, right? Like, I'm like, I need to discuss the education task force. I need to discuss this. I need to discuss this. Like, I'm just going to keep adding discussion items to the agenda because we didn't have any other option. I'm not going to do that anymore. I can't speak for what the other commissioners are going to do. But my hope and belief is that they wouldn't be doing that because we have this opportunity. And if they were going to do that, there'd be a good reason for it.
Right.
So I think, to Commissioner McVoy's point, if we can keep a little bit of flexibility, but also have a professional courtesy of knowing, there was that one agenda item on vacant lands that got brought up as a discussion, and we put the old proposal in the backup, and then we got this huge backlash from the community. Right? Why are you guys wanting to force irrigation on empty properties? I don't know about you. I got a ton of emails reacting to, you put this on the agenda and you guys are reviving this old thing that was unpopular that nobody wanted. And it was just meant to be a discussion point.
Right.
And the more we can limit those kinds of things from happening, so we can stay focused on our real issues and not like misperceived issues in the community, we're going to be functioning a lot better. So I feel like if the commissioners are all bringing this up, we can talk about them here and avoid just like those kinds of things from happening, but not completely shut it down. I'd be interested to see if we just have a common professional courtesy understanding of this is really the place where you're supposed to be getting your items added to the agenda. We're not going to go to the extreme of saying you're never allowed to do it directly to the clerk, but use that as a last resort when you feel it's appropriate.
An emergency situation, really. Yeah. I mean, wise words, Kim. That's excellent.
Madam Mayor?
Yeah.
If I can say, and typically, to add to Commissioner Stokes, that's generally like what most municipalities and local governments do. They use their regular meetings as a business session for voting in major issues, and use the workshops for the discussions, to flesh out items, to see what needs to be moved forward for further consideration that eventually be carried out at your regular meetings, and just talk about current issues and issues of concern to see if it leads to greater policy or action by the city. So you're moving towards that. Your regular meetings being devoted to voting items, and the workshops being discussion items to flesh out issues and areas of concerns that could further be vetted and put into policy. So if you use your workshop sessions for those discussions, and that allow staff and understanding as to your direction, your issues, and even bring up items if we're working on things that need to be tweaked administratively, we can do so through those discussions at your workshops.
Yeah, I think it should be a rare occasion that a commissioner or myself goes to the city clerk and goes, I want this on the agenda, because we are a team. And one of the things that I think, one of our goals as a commission is to work as a team. And if we can talk these things out before it gets on the dais and have now that we have this opportunity to do that, I think we should maximize this opportunity to, like you said, Carmen, and make and now that this is available to the public, people can watch it anytime, make the regular meetings more business. We've talked about it. We do have a tendency to talk a lot, even when we've talked about things and it gets in the agenda and then we talk about it again. And I would like to see now again that people can, hear what we're talking about in these agenda meetings, is to get away from, some would call it backtracking, some would call it, I just think we need to be more, I don't know, concise perhaps when we get up there. If we can. We can't always. I mean, there's always a discussion available, but
Madam Mayor, I went through very quickly my 6 items. I would like to flesh out one of them at least, because I think it's time sensitive. Could I do that?
Yes, what is it?
The COVID-19 one.
Yeah.
I'm very concerned with what I'm seeing nationally. New York City went from 1% Omicron at December 1st to about
70.
greater than 3
Right.
quarters. Miami's doing the same, daily doubling in New York City. Some analyses of who's getting vaccinated and who's not. I think we have some vulnerable populations in our city. I would really like to see the city take a lead on encouraging good public health items. And I have 3 suggestions in that area for your all's consideration.
Okay.
And if I could state those, they're coming from epidemiologists. I didn't invent them.
Very quickly, because we're almost out of time.
Redefine fully vaccinated in all our consideration to mean including boosters. There seems to be less resistance of people to getting boosters, and it seems to be pulling people along to get vaccinated and get the booster. Don't quite know why, but it's a good thing. There's clearly medical information that the boosters are making a big difference, more so than, and that the early double vaccines wear off somewhat. So I'd like us to change our definition. Fully vaccinated means included boosters. And then I think we ought to put out the word that we limit public spaces indoors to folks who are vax boosted and constantly masked, that we really adopt that as a city policy and encourage it as policy in the city. And then do as much informational stuff as we can, even things like the sign at City Hall or the signs at City Hall, really encouraging people to get boosters, to stay masked, stay distanced. And I say all this much more from what I'm seeing nationally and internationally. But I can say that living with quarantine and somebody in the household with COVID who was double vaccinated but not boosted, it's a little scary and it's a burden. But it's the bigger picture.
What are you suggesting, real quickly, concisely, what are you suggesting the city do?
I just suggested them. I'll read them again. Redefine that fully vaccinated for us means you've had boosters. Limit indoor gatherings in public spaces to vaccinated, boosted, and fully masked. And then do as much public service announcement kind of things, or communication, whatever we call it, putting the word out that this is a big deal. Omicron is a big deal. It may not get you as sick, but it's way more contagious. And so encourage people to get their boosters, to stay masked, to stay distanced. Just that we take some lead on this stuff.
Okay, I mean,
Mayor,
public,
let me
public
jump in here
statement.
real quick. Those are mandates.
Yeah,
And as far as I'm concerned, our attorneys online, we don't have mandates in place. I don't even think we've defined what fully vaccinated means to a definition unless we're talking about the bonus that was issued in the collective
At this
bargaining unit.
point, with all due respect, Juan, this needs to be a commission decision of how do we want to lead on this? And as a scientist who's been following this stuff, I don't think it's responsible for me not to make sure that we are doing our utmost. Obviously, we don't want to, get ourselves in a ton of legal trouble, but we have a governor who's been extremely unhelpful from a public health point. We have a surgeon general that he's hired who is extremely unhelpful, dangerous to the community. We need to do better as a community. And so if there's if there's some agreement among the commission, that's where the policy gets set.
Madam Mayor?
Yep.
I definitely want to hear the thoughts from all the commissioners, but in general, I think it would benefit that we certainly, on the very least, and I would definitely defer to the advice from our legal team to at least get out information. We can at least get out public information.
And suggestions.
Use the CDC information as a guidance to the public to just reiterate, good health approaches in the times that we're in. So we can do that at the very least, and any more that we can do, I certainly would like to defer to legal staff as far as how far we can go in leading this. But we certainly should push out information. But I'm most interested in hearing what you all say as a group.
I can't tell if it's my computer or yours, Carmen, but that audio was really jumbly.
Yeah.
Anybody
Oh,
else
I'm
have-
sorry.
It's Carmen. Sorry, Carmen.
Sorry, Carmen.
I'm
I
sorry,
heard
I'm
what you
sorry.
said, but I do want to let you know, we
Okay.
did vote as a commission to allocate $10,000 from the ARPA fund for a public service campaign to try to promote a health, like vaccines and accurate information. So I think we just need to, things at the time, I think Delta was surging and then that died down, but there's always going to be something coming right behind it. So I think we should really try to move on that. So we did set aside funds to help with that effort.
Yeah, and once again, the issue becomes what's the most effective way to get the message out to the people? And
Right.
that's our challenge. And I think we should figure that, the website, the banners in front of City Hall, us doing, saying, so information, there's a new variant and it's very contagious. It's not people are getting quite sick. Are you saying, Chris, that we should start like masking again and have people? Yeah, I don't think we can make people show that they've been fully vaccinated before they come into a building. I don't think we can do that. I don't think we have the ability. Christy, I don't see your hand raised yet, but I hope at some point it will.
That's where I was leading, Madam
Yes.
Mayor, was on.
No,
one of
I
the
agree.
points Is and again, I don't disagree. It's a policy issue. Let me
Right.
be clear. I'm not trying to influence one way or another. It's one of the comments from Commissioner McVoy was about limiting or restricting access to our facilities. We just went through this whole big,
We're
we
not.
need to reopen, we need to reopen.
not.
So Carmen and I need clear direction from the policy board. What is it that you want to do? It's that simple.
Are we still requiring masks and social distancing?
It's suggested. We suggest wear a mask. We suggest social distance, but we're wide open.
Okay, well. Can we require masks we don't want to show, we want the meetings to be open still to the public. So social distancing, can we require masks? I don't think we can.
There's absolutely no reason that we cannot, as the ruling body of this city, cannot say that if you're going to come into city buildings, you need to be wearing a mask. We may not be able to ask people whether they're vaccinated or booster or whatever, although we could, but we can certainly say you need to wear a mask if you're coming in. We are protecting our employees. We are protecting the public who come in after the person. And the fact that we opened it up, yes, that's fine. And we all see benefits to City Hall being open and city buildings being open. We also have a duty to protect people, and the situation has changed. You have a variation of the thing that's incredibly contagious. It's perfectly fine for us to respond to that and change our requirements.
I have no issue with a mask requirement. I wear that if I go to Publix, anytime I go if I'm in a small group of people that I know have been fully vaccinated, I let down my guard. But if I go to Publix, if I go anywhere with strangers indoors, I put on my mask. My kids are still wearing they just got their second shot. They're still wearing their masks to school every day. I know that there's a group of people that made it seem like the most egregious thing to their freedom ever, but it's like honestly a piece of cloth that you wear. It's not a burden for the amount of protection it provides us collectively.
I think we should defer to the attorney for a minute.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, what I would suggest is, since we're really not supposed to use this forum to make a policy decision, is let me get together with Carmen and Juan and talk about the operational needs and desires. And perhaps we can present that to you on January 4th in terms of what the city manager sees as the operational needs for the organization, and bring forth some ideas along with the legal restrictions we may face in taking certain actions.
Yeah, I mean, we certainly want to be careful with it and do it correctly. So it is now 10 after, almost 7 after. I think, any last thoughts before we wish everyone a Merry Christmas? I hear radio silence. My God.
I'm looking around. I can find something for you, Betty. I'm like,
I know,
Betty,
listen, we all can, but all right. So I think we've got, as far as the agenda items, I think that we've talked about that one. So have a good Christmas, everybody. And see you, geez, when? January 4th?
I believe so.
Wow.
We'll be around the offices. Offices are closed tomorrow and Friday, then we reopen Monday, and then we're closed, I think it's Friday, December 31st. So city offices will still be open, with the exception of a couple of days there. And we'll be back in office January 3rd. So.
All right.
Time will go by fast.
It goes by too fast. If I don't get some of the projects, I've closed my law office for the week in between. So we're taking a little break so I can actually get some yard work done and catch up with laundry and purging and all the stuff you don't get to do in a day. So I hope everyone has a great holiday, whatever that holiday means. Have safe travels, Carmen, on your way back. Hurry back.
Thank you.
And we'll see each other very soon. Okay.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Happy
Take care.
holidays.
Happy
Happy
holidays.
holidays.
Happy New Year as well.